Hello and welcome to another tutorial. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching you how to properly get the correct tension for your Brother SE1900. Before we get started, let me go ahead and show you some examples of different tensions on the machine. I'm also going to explain a little bit of three things that could be impacting the tension of your machine and what to focus on. That way it's easier to adjust certain things throughout your embroidering stuff. So one of the things that I want to mention is that I use the letters that come with the machine to basically do my tension test. So what I like to do is I go to the AA that are black and white and I click on those. And then I go to the first ABCs, so 01 ABC. So I click on that. And then my letter of choice is I. That's the best one to choose for the test. So then I hit set on that. And then for those of you who aren't too familiar with this machine and how to move things around, if you want to move the eye around the embroidered hoop, let me show you that. Then you go ahead and press OK or edit end. And then it'll give you the chance to actually move this again. Depending on which hoop you're using, little quick note, you want to basically select the hoop. That way the machine knows, or the machine gives you a better understanding of basically where to move stuff. For example, I changed the hoop size there, now I'm changing it to this one. And the machine gives me a bigger square, and I go to this one, the machine gives me a different square. So depending what hoop you're using to embroider or even test, you want to select to the right hoop. That way when you're moving your design around, it's within the hoop. So for example, I changed the little egg there, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically adjust it a little. And one of the cool things that you can also even do is you can see right here by my thumb that there's a rotation button. If you hit that, you can also rotate the design around and it'll embroider in different ways essentially. It's very interesting, to be honest, but hey. Once you're done, you press OK. And then once you hit embroider, then you're ready to start embroidering that. So that's basically what I use to do my test for the tension. I kind of wanted to throw this in there just so that you guys don't get confused as to what exactly I'm using to do the tension test. Alrighty, so here are a few embroidery tension tests that I did. As you guys can tell, they're fairly similar. There doesn't look like a whole lot of difference, but when you do more complex designs, the tension will play a huge role on the quality of your design, so it's important to get it right from the get-go. So on the back, I actually wrote down the correct tensions, and on here you can actually see what the correct tension should be. Can you guys take a guess of what the right one should be? If you said number 3, you are correct. Now, here is something that I basically tested. This is for the first run. We're going to do a couple of trial and error things here in just a moment so that you guys can learn how to adjust it yourself. But this is kind of what we're looking for. We're looking for something to where, imagine there's 3 rows back here and you want to be 2 to 1 and you want them to be basically even. Like you want the girth of this and the girth of this and the girth of this to be about the same. You don't want the 2 outer ones to be bigger than the middle one, and then you don't want the outer ones to be smaller than the middle row here, as you can tell here. Now, the machine default tension should be number 4, and the way you can adjust the tension, let me show you here. The way you can adjust the tension of your machine to minor adjustments and stuff like that is by clicking this here. And then you can, if you want it to be, if, for example, let's see. So for example, let's say when you first did a quick test, the machine's tension was a 4.0 and you did a quick test and you got this super thick thing. Then in order to get a much tighter tension, you bring the number down. So as you can tell here, I brought the number down to, let's pretend it was at 3. Now, I did a quick test at 4 first, and this is the result that I got. So then I did another 2 and put a bigger number. As you can tell, I went to 4.5, then I went to 5.2, and it just got a whole lot looser, and that's not what I wanted. I wanted it a bit more tighter. So then I brought the tension down to 3, and that's how I got this result. So that's one way to kind of fix the tension. Now, this is just like a quick fix. This is not a solution to your machine having a problem with tension. So there are 3 components of your machine that will determine the tension of your embroidering. Now, again, like I said earlier, tension really tends to play a huge role on your quality of work. Okay, so this little tool right here, the little scissors with the red and white, red and black thread, is your number 1 tool to use. It is the most easiest one to adjust in order to get the right tension, but this should not be the only way you should adjust your tension. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, the default tension should be at 4. So what I mean by that is that your machine should always have a tension of 4. As you can tell, when I changed it to 4, it made a black little box around it because that is the default setting that the machine should be at. So what I'm trying to get at is the machine at 4.0, it should be making these kinds of trails right here. The next item that will impact the tension of your embroidery designs will be your bobbins. This one's something that gets overlooked by a lot of people, but bobbins are actually something that play a key role in the tension of your machine. So what we're going to do next is we're actually going to replace the bobbin that's in the machine right now, and we're going to run another test at the tension of 4.0 and then 3.0 and 2.0 and see how it stacks up with the current bobbin. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, let's take this bobbin out and replace it with, let's just do a random raw bobbin here from the middle of the pile. Let's go ahead and put it on there. And cover it up. And let's go ahead and install this here. Again, so for this test with a different bobbin, we're going to start off our tension at 4, and let's go ahead and embroider that. So you guys can tell here that all I did really was just adjust a different bobbin, and it looks like the tension on the top one here with the different bobbin is fairly similar to the tension on the previous bobbin, which is down here. Alrighty, now that I labeled it bobbin 2, bobbin 1, let's go ahead and go to 3, and then we'll go to 2 on this one right away, and we'll see how that bobbin compares to the previous one. And this is going to determine a lot for our machine as far as what we need to adjust, okay? Alrighty, now in order to move our design over and stuff like that on the hoop, let's press the back arrow here. Let's press the back left side button here. Okay, perfect. Let's hit embroider. And let's change our tension to 3. Normally, again, you're not supposed to mess with this a lot. I'm gonna show you guys what to adjust so that it always stays at 4 and it gives you that good tension. But before I do that, it is very important that we determine that, hey, it's not this that we need to adjust. It's not the bobbins, because we're testing different bobbins to make sure that they all have the similar tension. With those 2 variables figured out, then that leaves the other option, which I'll get to in just a moment. And we will drop the foot again and hit go. And then we're going to check and see how the tension is looking. So the tension with a bobbin, a new bobbin, even though it's at 3, it's still fairly close to the tension on bobbin number 1 with the tension at 3. So if you didn't want to do the next step, this is basically a quick fix to your problems with, you know, not having perfect tension. This is basically, this will work just fine for some people if you don't want to do the next step. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because it can get a little complex, but I'm here to help you out. So I'm not going to leave you in the shadows. I'm going to help you get the right tension no matter what. But this sometimes does pretty well for most folks. You just have to remember, okay, before I do a design, let me run a test and see where I'm at 3 or 2 or 4, and usually that works for a lot of people. If you're one of those people that, hey, this is not working, I've tried this, I've seen a different tutorial, and this is not working for me, the next step is something that it's definitely going to help you out. And this is the third thing that impacts your tension in your embroidery stuff. So then let's go ahead and get into that. Let's lift this up, move this out of the way, take this out. We're going to go ahead and pull back by pressing down on this. We're going to press down on this thing. We're going to press down and then kind of like slide it. Press down and slide, sort of like. So you can just use your 2 thumbs. There we go. The machine will give you like a warning. That's fine. Let's go ahead and remove the bobbin and the bobbin thread. Now, your machine should have come with 2 of these little guys. One of them is going to have this green little ink right here. You can see that little green ink. And then the other one is going to have no ink on there. And this one is what you're going to be using to basically adjust the tension on your machine. So if the first 2 things didn't work out, you know, your tension's still pretty bad, the next step is to basically grab this guy, and what you're going to need is a tiny little flathead. I think you can use one of the tools that came with your machine, but this is basically the flathead. I'm sorry. This is a little screw that you're going to want to basically tighten or loosen just to get the right tension. So let's go ahead and you don't want to twist it too much. Let me give you an example. Alrighty, when you are adjusting this tension thread here, what you want to do is turn it lightly. So let's pretend, you see how it's a circle shape, right? This little guy here, it's a little circle shape. Okay, you see that? So you see how it has that little circle shape and stuff like that. So let's kind of divide this into 4 sections. So turning it half a circle is a half, turning it just a quarter is a quarter. You know what I mean by that? So I'm going to go ahead and turn this by a half a circle to the right. Again, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. It applies to everything pretty much. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn it half a circle. So let's do that. Okay, perfect. I basically turn it half a circle to the right. We're going to go ahead and insert this guy here. Make sure that when you're putting in your bobbin thing, this little white dot here, make sure this little white dot here lines up with a little white dot that's on this middle plate right here. That little white dot on this little bobbin thing, it's supposed to be an indicator to line it up with that little white dot right there. So there we go. It's supposed to line up in here, and it's just supposed to fall in there. There we go. Let's go ahead and put our plate cover back there, because the machine has a sensor that knows this thing is not on and it will not work if it's not in there. Let's go ahead and load up a bobbin. Let's go ahead and thread that bobbin. Perfect. Let's install this little plate also on there. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and adjust the tension on the machine to where it says 4. Okay, so let's click on this guy here. Let's bring our tension to the default, which is 4, and we're going to press OK. Let's go ahead and install our hoop here. So let's do that. And we're just going to use the bottom row here. And let's see where we're at with that tension. Perfect. So I got a really bad one. And this is something that I kind of was hoping would happen. This is awesome. If you see this happen to your machine, don't get alarmed at all. Don't even stress it. This is something that happened just now. If something like this happens while you're embroidering, don't get too stressed about it. So basically what caused this to happen was that our machine did not grab the bobbin the correct way. So basically this is how you fix that. So if you pay close attention to this here, let me remove the little plate cover. The thread of the bobbin should be going over this little section, should be coming from here, going this direction, and it's not showing on there. A lot of the times when you have to change your bobbin, it's always good to kind of, make sure it does go over before you embroider the rest of your design. Don't just start the design after changing your bobbin and leave it, because a lot of times what happens is the machine won't catch the bobbin thread correctly. It will embroider and it will go, but you will end up getting what I just showed you a moment ago. Now that we did that, let's go ahead and try this again. Same tension, haven't changed anything. I'm just fixing the bobbin. There we go. So let's see what's going on. We have to remove this. It looks like it's not embroidering the way it should. So let's try this again. As you guys can tell, the machine is still not picking up the bobbin the way it should go. So this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to double check and make sure I am doing it right. So, okay, let's go ahead and do that here, do that here, and push that out here. All right, so it's just not grabbing the bobbin the correct way. Let's go ahead and see what's going on with this here. Let's go ahead and remove this as well. Let's take this out. Okay, so basically what I did, to start off from the beginning, all I did is I tightened this little guy as much as I could to the right, and this is pretty freaking tight, like super tight. We're going to install this back on there, and then we're going to start from there. We're going to start from the start line. What we're going to do, I tightened as much as I could, and then I'm going to start loosening it by a circle at a time. Let's go ahead and put that back on there. Perfect. Let's install this here. Okay, I see that this is not looking well. So what I'm going to do is I am going to observe, see what's going on here. So we're getting a lot of white on the machine here. It's actually funny because this should be the other way around. The red should be, okay, it should be like this, but it's coming out white like this. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start loosening it up the bobbin at the bottom here. The bobbin holder, my bad, not the bobbin, but the bobbin holder. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do one full circle to the left. So we're going to start here, and that's one full circle to the left. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and install it back. Perfect. I'm going to put this plate back on there. Put the bobbin inside the bobbin holder. And then we're just gonna rinse and repeat this process until we basically get that good tension. Cool, cool, cool. Okay. So, let's see here. So as you guys can tell from that right there, the machine finally started grabbing the thread properly. And let me show you what I was talking about earlier. Let me go ahead and remove the plate here. As you guys can tell, the bobbin thread is on the top of the machine. If for some reason when you change the bobbin thread, your machine starts doing this funky design thing where it's coming out with, you know, just a ton of white stuff here, what you want to do essentially is you essentially want to basically just take the bobbin out, rethread it until it starts coming out pretty good. Now, every time you're going to change a bobbin, I always recommend running a test just to make sure that when you change the bobbin, it doesn't start doing this, it starts coming out the way it should be. Okay, now that we finally got some progress going with the tension of the bobbin placer, I honestly don't know what that thing is called, so I'm just going to call it that. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and recap. All I did is I tightened the tension of the bobbin holder all the way to the right, and then I did a whole circle to the left, like a complete 360. And look at this. It not only started catching the thread, it actually looks a whole lot closer to 3 than it does look to 4. So it's coming out at a really, really good tension. So that's a really good sign. So we're almost done, honestly. We're almost done. I just want it to look a whole lot like number 3. And the crazy part is that I actually left the tension of the machine at 4, which is the default. And it started coming out like the tension on 3 with, you know, different bobbins and stuff like that, which is awesome. So now that we have a really good adjustment there, we're gonna turn the bobbin holder's little screw a tiny bit. I would say a quarter of a circle, not a half, not a full circle, just a quarter. So let's go ahead and do that and run another test and see how well it goes. Okay, let's go ahead and remove that. Make sure the foot is up. You always want to have the foot up when you're doing stuff here. You don't want to get your fingers caught, to be honest. So that's awesome. Let's go ahead and remove this. Okay. So as you guys can tell here, that's how much the thing is turned. I'm only going to turn it about a quarter. So quarter would be like almost like this. Perfect. About a quarter. Now that I did that, let's go ahead and put it back in there, rebobbin it, do a test, and keep the tension on number 4 on the machine, and that should give us the best tension. It did not pick up the bobbin thread correctly. It didn't thread it correctly, so let's hit the little scissors here. Let's lift this up, take off the hoop, and let's re-thread that bobbin. All right, it finished. Cool, cool, cool. Now let's see where we're at. Alrighty, so this one right here is the last one that I did with the adjusting the bobbin holder and keeping the tension at 4. And you guys can tell it looks fairly similar to the tension 3 and tension 3 as well on the different bobbins that I use. So there we go. We finally did it. All right, so now that we did that correctly, let's go ahead and load up another bobbin. Let's go ahead and load up a whole different new bobbin here. Let's take this one out. Put it onto our holder here. We'll put this one in, and we'll just grab a different one. We'll grab maybe this one from the corner on the right. And let's thread that bobbin in. Cool, cool, cool. Dang it. I'm gonna have to clean that up. Unfortunate. Okay, so that's a new bobbin. Let's go ahead and install this. Let's go ahead and adjust this here. Whoa, it even got the correct threading of the bobbin on the first try. That's awesome. You love to see it. So this is one of the benefits of getting the right tension on the bobbin from the beginning, is that when you tend to load other bobbins, the machine will actually thread it correctly, and you'll end up having better results when you run out of a bobbin thread and you're having to replace it mid-design, which is awesome. So moment of truth, this is a different bobbin on the same tension, and as you can tell, it looks super similar to the different bobbin that we had previously set up on there. And that's pretty much it. That's a wrap. That's how you will basically always get the perfect tension. The last one is definitely the most annoying to deal with, but it's the one that will set your machine right. So it's the one that's worth doing more than the other ones. Now that you set up the bobbin thread speed correctly, if you end up finding that, different bobbins sometimes throw you different tensions, then that's when you can essentially use the tension tool on the machine to adjust your tension. But again, you shouldn't depend too much on that. You should always depend on the default setting, which is 4. Oh man, I can't believe I dropped all of those. Freaking sucks. Now I have to put every single one of them back in here. This takes forever. Alrighty guys, that'll be pretty much all for this video. If you found this tutorial super helpful, let me know in the comments below. I would really appreciate it if you can drop me a like. That really helps this channel. Also, I would like to mention one more thing. If you're a person that constantly uses their machine, like maybe a bunch of times throughout the month, this is something that you kind of want to do to your machine once every 3 to 5 months if you use it often. Now, if you don't use this machine that often, I would still recommend calibrating it maybe every 5 to 6 months, just to make sure your machine is always running well, because throughout time things can become loose. So just keep that in mind. Thank you so much for checking out this channel. I'll see you guys on the next one.